Hi, I'm Ken Adams, and welcome to this edition of the Valley View. And I've invited Jeff James to come in and talk about the restoration of Courthouse Square and what we can possibly do about the police station. Because those are two big issues that are one that we've dealt with and one that we've got coming up.
That's right.
So welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thanks, Ken.
And before the show, I was talking about the fact that I moved to Salem. One of the things that attracted me to Salem was that it had an actual live downtown. And so I was quite horrified when I heard that they might actually tear down Courthouse Square and just basically leave it vacant or maybe build something in the future.
That's right.
And that was actually one of the options they were considering.
Yes, it was a scary time. In about 2010, they started to really identify the building had serious problems. And it was about 2011 the task force was formed, and the city of Salem designated the building as unsafe. So the county and transit had to evacuate the building. The task force was formed. I was one of the people who volunteered to be on it. It was about 23, good cross-section of Salem, Marion County citizens of many professions and backgrounds, but I thought from the outset that it was too unwieldy to be effective, and so I shortly after joining the committee I suggested that the committee should be broken down into subcommittees. And so they said, well, Jeff, you're a licensed architect, why don't you put together a subcommittee called the technical committee to see if you can figure out what are the best options as far as saving the building. And then we'll form another committee chaired by Jim Lewis, who has just been elected to City Council, and Jim was the chair of the Wild and Crazy Ideas Committee. And their main objective was to say, well, if it's true that the consultants tell us, the consultants were paid $1.3 million to produce a report that described the condition of the building and what it would cost to fix the building. The consultants came out and said it would cost $60-something million to fix the building. Basically gut it and put a steel frame inside it to hold it up and all the rest of it. What if that was the fact that the building had to be torn down? What would the site be best used as? And so that was the role of the other committee. Our committee, from the outset, set about identifying what's really wrong with the building. Let's verify what I call the Pearl District consultants came up with their very expensive report. I found that some of their numbers had been exaggerated. I found that we did measuring over the weekends, and we found that the deflection of the post-stress concrete slabs was only half as much as they had shown in their report. We found that the building did not need a steel frame; it just needed some surgical repairs to. First of all, the columns were undersized. There were about 200 columns in the building that indeed were skinny and undersized. And there was a tendency for what the structural engineers call puncture, where those slender columns were trying to force themselves through this 10-inch thick flat slab. The floors of the building were a series of consistently 10-inch thick flat slabs, so these columns were cracking the slab as it was trying to force through. And so our colleagues, our small team of a couple of builders, an architect and an engineer, thought, well, the solution to that is what's called a column cap, which is like a dropped slab at the top of the column, which then avoids that
Trying to puncture
effect,
Yeah.
and stops that cracking. And So and then we said the slabs were under strength, and that could be corrected with what's called carbon fiber that can be applied to the soffit or the underside of the slabs. And then the shear walls, or the elements that hold the building up, say in the event of an earthquake or for wind resistance, are the two elevator towers, massive concrete towers, the east and the west towers. And those needed strengthening. The shear walls are pretty massive, but they need to be further reinforced. And that can be done again with either additional concrete thickness or the use of this carbon fiber applied material that has to be carefully bonded to the surface of the concrete, so it adds that added strength. And so we presented a preliminary proposal to the county and the transit and the task force, and people were very skeptical. They thought, okay, here's a local group. They've had extensive background and so on, but who are they to challenge this expensive firm that we hired out of Portland that told us the building needs $65 million worth of additional repairs and a steel frame. And so what we did next was we contacted who we found was the best or the most expert company in the country, even the world, who had successfully fixed the several buildings like the Guggenheim Museum in New York that had corroding rebar or reinforcement. They had done hundreds of buildings and successfully fixed them around the world. And so the Vice President, Jay Thomas, reached him, and he happened to be in Las Vegas, and he said, I'll come to Salem and meet with your small committee, which he did. And he said, you guys are right. He said, if you do those 6 things that you've listed, that do a surgical strengthening of the building, those elements, the columns, the column caps, the floor slab, and the shear walls. That's half of it, and the other half, that might be $10 million, and then there'd be another, perhaps $10 million of architectural type work, non-structural work, to fix the elements, the walls and the windows that had been moved around, and some of the windows were now leaking because of the flashings had been dislodged and the caulking, and so and then some of the floors needed a lightweight topping slab to take out that excess deflection. That's a natural characteristic of post-stress concrete floors, that they do, when they tighten those cables, they do deflect. But there's a tolerance.
Right.
And they on the 5th floor on the northeast corner, that tolerance had been exceeded, and the slope of the floor was noticeable and was bothering the commissioners, and it needed to be fixed. And that was fixed by a leveling slab, self-leveling slab, which was the perfect solution. And that only needed to be done in selected areas of the building, mostly on the 5th floor. Anyway, we then had a selling job to do to persuade the task force that we'd hit on the solution, and that we'd got, we actually talked to 6 structural engineering firms, several of which were very conservative and followed the same track as the officially hired consultants, and said, we wouldn't risk doing something unconventional. Others were open-minded and said, well, look, that might work, but we'd have to do very sophisticated computer modeling to prove that you're right. And one local firm, Bill Peace, BMGP Engineering, who ended up helping to implement the repairs. They concurred with us that if those calculations were done, we may be right and that those repairs would do the job. So we were recommending then that the building could be remediated for about $20 million we put in our report. It ended up at 22.8, but that was natural because when the county wants a building brought back to, they called it as new condition, which the building now looks like it's new again. They want new carpeting, they want mechanical equipment replaced, which has nothing to do with the structural condition.
Right.
But they said, well, while we're doing work,
right,
let's fix this and this. So they drove the cost up a little over what we had said would be the bare minimum. Anyway, we brought the structural company to Salem a couple more times. They did a webinar first, and then they came and did a big presentation. And we persuaded then the county commissioners and the transit board that they should go out to get proposals. And we recommended a design-build approach where you get one entity, like Structural Solutions Incorporated, to be the prime contractor, and then bring in local contractors. I recommended Dalkey because Dalkey had done work on Courthouse Square before. They were familiar with the building. They'd done interior remodeling. And I recommended Carlson Veit, local architectural firm, because they'd also worked in the building doing what's called tenant improvements, redesigning suites over the few years. And Bill Peace, the engineer, structural engineer. So they brought in their engineers out of Austin, Texas, and their own in-house engineering personnel, formed this team, and they produced a winning proposal. There were two proposals, and they got the job. They were so convincing that they had the right solution, and county obviously was very impressed with them, and it's been an amazing success story. Their skills, their technology, and their safety record was just immaculate throughout, and they produced the job on schedule and under that budget. And we've got some, obviously delighted and relieved county commissioners and transit board members because the nightmare
it could
was
have
over.
been a real big nightmare.
Oh yes, could have been a hole in the ground with a fence around it for another 10 years.
Right, and even if they had done what this other group had been talking about for 60 million plus, that would have taken considerably longer, I would imagine.
Yes. Yeah, that firm, they did for example, the ODOT building, the highway building on the Capitol Mall, needed some work. It needed air conditioning system. It had some asbestos tile in it and so on. But their approach was to gut a building. When they get a job, they say, well, we need to redo the building entirely. And so when you gut the building and you get it down to its bare bones, you don't have much left. And it's so expensive.
Right.
And they were up to $400 and something a square foot just to remodel an existing building. And $65 million to fix Courthouse Square, which only cost $34 million to build in the first place. So the cost was prohibitive, and the $20-something million was acceptable and affordable. At least the county could adjust their budgets to
accommodate that.
To accommodate it by setting aside, was it $6 or $8 million a year in their supplemental budget, and so over 3 years of saving, they had enough to. Well, the county's share was under 20 because the transit paid. It wasn't quite a third, but their share was the other part of it. so it all worked out well.
Well, and it is, and
Mm.
it's functioning now.
Oh,
and
yes.
it, like I say, it was done so much quicker than if they had done this other proposal where they gut the building and
Yes.
basically start over.
And whereas there was still a lot of skepticism and fear, now people realize it's probably the safest building in Marion County, in the area, and maybe the Willamette Valley, as this is the Valley View show. Courthouse Square is maybe the place to be when the big one happens, because other buildings around will be crumbling like City Hall and pancaking and collapsing, but Courthouse Square will be so strong and safe.
Well, that brings us up to the police station
That's right.
and City Hall. So what's the situation there? Is that another case where they basically need to retrofit because of earthquake problems, or are
Yes.
there bigger problems involved?
Yeah, I came to Salem in 1974, so exactly 40 years this year. And the Civic Center had been built, I think, 2 years previously in 1972, roughly, at least completed and opened. And so that was before the Scotts Mills earthquake, before the people realized that,
Earthquakes happen here.
yeah, and they happen like every 350 years or whatever the time period is. The archaeologists tell us it's happened 350 years ago. It happens roughly in that sequence, and we're due for another one, which would be a 9 or 9.5, possibly potentially on the Richter scale, which means that every building in Salem would be damaged, because when the ground shakes for maybe up to 15 minutes, every building is going to be damaged, and the trick with City Hall is you remember Haiti,
Yes.
where the video shows all these buildings, concrete buildings all over. You could see them in the distance pancaking and the big clouds of dust. Well, that's what would happen to the Civic Center. That unfortunately our first responders are in the basement on the first floor, and we need them, and we need their vehicles out of there helping the neighbors immediately after the disaster. So we don't need them trapped
In need of rescue themselves.
That's right. We need them out, and that's why I'm in a group that is recommending that the police not be in a basement bunker parking garage built on the site of the Mirror Pond Lake. That's the site they've selected, but move it out to a site nearby, a few blocks away, and there are several that have been considered, where the parking is like Eugene did, an open parking lot with a secure fence around it for security. But the cost of a parking space is $2,000 to $5,000 on an open parking lot. Their budget for what they plan to do at City Hall is $55,000 per parking space, which is like 3 times the national average for a parking structure. So I don't think it's affordable, and the people of Salem, when they found out that the cost had grown to, what's it now, up to 80 million, 80.5 million, that a lot of that cost, 12 or 13 million dollars of that cost, is due to the 2-level bunker basement parking garage that is built in an earthquake-prone zone that years ago was a swamp next to a major creek. So what if they can strengthen it so it doesn't collapse? Maybe the walls will still crack, and you've got a water table and a creek a short distance away that building could be flooded anyway, and the ramps, the narrow ramps, access to and from the bunker may be blocked with debris, so those first responders' vehicles wouldn't be able to get out. So we think, number one, because of the cost, and number two, because we need those first responders out where they can be mobile and the vehicles won't be buried, that we should look for alternative sites So Eugene did it for $16 million, and
That was 16, not
16 point something, plus furniture and equipment, so $17 million, just under 17 they did it. A few blocks from City Hall, and we think that that's the right direction. Look for sites around it.
Now, City Hall itself, the
Yes.
remaining building would still have to be structurally improved, I would imagine.
That's the other half of it, and their estimates are about, well, they show cost estimates of about $6.5 million to strengthen the City Hall portion, that building, for just so that it doesn't collapse. The building will still be damaged, but at least the city workers will be, their lives will be saved. So $6.5 million for that. And then as soon as they announced initially a $70 million fix for that, plus the police station addition, people said, well, you should consider the library as well, because those library patrons and the kids and the library workers are people too, and it's part of the civic center. So they said, okay, we'll get a study done, which they did the first of the year, and that cost came in at $6.5 million. So you have 6.5 plus 6.5 plus another 1 point something to strengthen the parking garage that's next to the library.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm in a group that is very positive about saying yes on the police facility for $20 million. And
But in a downtown location, but not over Mirror Lake.
That's right. It's somewhere of their choosing. And yes on $20 million seismic fix. So 20 plus 20 is $40 million, half the cost of the 80 that
they're
the
talking
city
about.
staff are proposing. So that's what our Salem Community Vision has recommended, and we've held 2 public meetings at the Grand Theater. The city, unfortunately, has failed to hold any public meetings, and I was challenged on that the other day when I appeared at City Council, and the City Council claimed that they've actually held 45 public meetings, but what they're doing, they're counting the appearance of Rotary clubs, Kiwanis clubs, neighborhood groups, and so they're not really, service clubs are not public meetings, and they have not allowed a public hearing or a place where people can testify. So we think this is such an important subject, and we're asking the public to pay for it anyway, that it's time to hear from the public and let people have a say, because just like Courthouse Square, it was the citizens that came in and saved the day, or at least came up with the solution after the expensive consultants had taken their $1 million and gone home and had been did not really help us with finding a solution. Maybe in Salem, the citizens can help the city council find a positive solution for how to create a good facility for the police. Just help them point in the right direction, and help pass a bond to fix the life safety measures of for the earthquake strengthening.
Yeah, well, this seems to be a problem, though, with the city, in that they quite often will claim that they've had all these public meetings and get incensed
Yes.
when the public reacts adversely to their plans because no one's really heard about it. And
Yes, it's surprising. And the newspaper editor commented on this the last time I went to City Hall, just to tell them that what I'm hearing at the many Rotary Club meetings I go to, people come up to me and they say, is it true that the city has not held any public meetings or public hearings on this issue? And and so I passed that on to the mayor and council. That's what I'm hearing, and the vehement reaction was, yes, we have. We've had 45 meetings. Well, I don't think that's quite what is needed. It isn't. We don't need the staff going around with a dog and pony show and their renderings showing the way it's going to be. We need a public meeting, which is more of a town hall meeting or series of meetings, like was held at the Grand Theatre by the citizens.
Well, there's input coming
Yeah.
from the public
you
instead
let
of
the
just this
people-
top-down kind of.
Yes, and you're going to have a few people that are critical, but we found at the Grand Theatre that most people were supportive of the police facility, supportive of the seismic. They were just concerned that the direction that the city staff were guiding the council was wrong. It was too expensive, and this mindset of it had to be at the Mirror Pond or nothing else was just needed to be looked at again. And
What kind of limits what you can do then?
Yes.
If that's where you say it has to go,
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily give you any kind of other. Yeah, then it's going to be very expensive
Yes.
because of what you're dealing with.
Yes. So now we have a situation, and the council held a work session at the Anderson Room at the Public Library last week, and the discussion there was from council members was, well, what if we took the public library and converted that into a police station? The trouble with that is you've then got to build another library somewhere.
Someplace else.
And so they said, well, yeah, we realize that, so we've got property across the street called Window to the West, where the SWAT vehicles park, and it's just an open parking lot on the west of the City Hall, cross commercial. We could put the library there, build something. Well, that's a cost, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then they said, well, we don't need such a big library, so that isn't so much. Well, we still got to build it. Or we could build it in the first floor of the Marion Parkade. There's the parking garage that on Marion Street. The first floor was intended for retail.
Yeah,
So that
well,
would
we're
be-
going to have to stop the conversation there, but I will point out that hasn't been covered either
No.
in the Salem Statesman Journal
Very
or
few
any place
people-
else. So nobody else really knows about it
Exactly.
except for a few people here. And so this has been Valley View, and I'd like to thank Jeff James for coming in and talking about these two very important subjects for Salem.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.